Huh? The garage shutter, which is usually closed, was oddly open. No way. My hand trembled, making the umbrella I was holding quiver. I could feel my heart pounding. As I got close to the car, I realized it clearly. There wasn't just a woman in the car, but a man too. And they were, astonishingly, in the midst of an affair. Oh my. I almost screamed from the shop, but bit my lower lip to endure it. I can't let them know I'm here. I need to get evidence. The man who came out of the car was undoubtedly my husband, Mike. Come on, the car's too cramped. Let's do it outside next time, right? Mike's cheerful voice made my skin crawl. No way, someone might see. Close the shutter. Yeah, it's fine. The car will hide us. The remote is too far. Come here, Sarah, you're the best. This is unbearable. I can't stay here. But if I leave now, what about the evidence? Struggling with nausea, I tried to think. That's it. I quickly grabbed clothes from the ground and a remote from the wall and left the garage. You two, so ardently engaged like monkeys, deserve to be left just as you are, with nothing on, fitting for your behavior. May you two stay there happily together forever. I've never worked with a woman before. Are you sure you're up for it? I can't deal with complaints or dears. The words from the client, said without malice, were a joke. I'm Emily Johnson, 34 years old. I've been in sales for over a decade. This is nothing new to me. I've got this. Trust me. I smiled at the client, Mr. Smith, who then casually began to pack up his documents. Although I'm used to it, I still felt uneasy. If anything comes up before our next meeting, feel free to contact me. As I stood up, hiding my inner turmoil, Mr. Smith came over and patted my shoulder, then stroked my back. Sure, I'll call you. He looks down on me because I'm a woman, yet acts with ulterior motives because I'm a woman. As I tried to distance myself from his hand, another man's voice rang out. Hey Smith, what are you doing? That's too familiar. Startled, Mr. Smith stepped back. Wilson, this isn't what it looks like. Ignoring Mr. Smith's excuse, the man apologized to me. I'm sorry about Smith. I'll have a word with him. Or, if you prefer, I can assign someone else to handle this. The man, likely Mr. Smith's boss, flashed a more polished sales smile. A few months later, I would end up marrying this man. The man's name is Mike Wilson. He's 40 years old, 6 years older than me. At our first meeting, I was impressed by his considerate nature, and afterward, Mike continued to show his smart handling of things. Gradually, we were drawn to each other, and a month ago, we got married. Mike was indeed handsome when we first met. It was surprising that he had never been married until the age of 40. But maybe there's a reason for someone remaining single until that age. I sighed as I looked at our new home. Let's go back to before we got married. Mike was a frugal person. I earn a decent amount, but there's no need to waste money. When I asked about the wedding, Mike looked puzzled and said, whether to have a ceremony or not is a personal choice. There are various values, but it's important to choose words carefully when conveying those values. I didn't necessarily want a big wedding, but being treated as an unnecessary expense is unsettling. With mixed feelings, I pressed on with another question. So, what about our new home? Shall we go house hunting this weekend? Both Mike and I were living with our parents. Therefore, moving into one of our apartments wasn't an option. We needed to decide on our post-marriage living arrangements. Mike vaguely suggested living together, but I firmly refused. Due to my job, I often come home late at night. I didn't want to inconvenience my in-laws with my different schedule, so renting seemed reasonable. How about looking for a 2-bedroom apartment? To my surprise, Mike objected. An apartment? He looked dissatisfied. Could he still be hoping for us to live together? I mentioned before, living with your parents is difficult. No, it's not that. I've only ever lived in a house. Mike interrupted. I lived alone during college and moved back home when I started working. Mike, on the other hand, commuted from home during college and started working right after, so he never lived alone. Are you worried about the space? For now, we don't have kids, so an apartment should be enough. It's not about the space. I just don't like the idea, you know? Size and age don't matter, but I'd prefer a house. Okay, got it. Let's look for one. Thus, due to his inexplicable insistence, we moved into this house. Today, our home becomes a 50-year-old rental house. It's older than my parents' house, but is, as desired, the standalone house. I would have preferred something newer, but couldn't convince frugal Mike. Well, there's a saying, any house becomes a home when you live in it. Yeah, that's true. It's old, but the rent is cheap, and it might be sensible for the future. But the rent wasn't the deciding factor. I'm gonna step out for a bit, Mike said, looking restless. He headed to the garage next to the house. The garage, added to the old house, was modern and out of place. It had an electric shutter operated by a remote. Following Mike, I saw him admiring something with fascination. How beautiful it is. What he was admiring was a super luxury car, delivered just a few days ago. I'm not knowledgeable about cars, so I don't really understand its value, but it's extremely expensive, including all expenses. It costs about $500,000. When I heard that amount, I was so shocked that time seemed to stop. That's enough to buy a house. If that's the case, we should have bought a house as you wanted. No, I don't care about houses. Don't you get it? It's a man's dream, a man's dream. I don't want him to brush off such a huge amount of $500,000 as just a man's dream. If this was from Mike's savings before we got married, I wouldn't say anything. But unbelievably, he bought it on a loan. Moreover, he thought I would oppose it if he consulted me beforehand, so he only told me afterward. Are you sure this is okay? You know, we might need more money in the future. It's okay, it's okay. After all, we're married now. What? Isn't it normal to stop wasteful spending, especially after getting married? Mike, looking at his own reflection in the car's body, didn't even glance at me as he said, after all, from now on, Emily will learn and manage the living expenses, right? Then I can use all my salary for the loan. What? When I was living at home, my mom managed my salary, and I couldn't use it freely. Now, I can spend it however I want. I had heard a bit about his mother managing Mike's money. I thought it was just overprotectiveness and didn't pay much attention, but now I see his sense of money is unique. He doesn't spend on living spaces he's not interested in, but spends generously on cars he loves. In a way, it's honest and the right way to spend money. But still, I can't accept being relied upon like this. Are you saying I should support you? That's definitely not possible. We might want kids in the future. No, what are you talking about? I'm already 40, and you're 34, right? It's too late to think about having kids. Don't start having strange expectations now. Just give me the money instead. But you said you wanted kids too, and now it's all about the car. If it happens, we'll raise them, no choice. Oh, and stop saying support, okay? I'm working hard too. Mike makes excuses, but if he pours his salary into the car and I have to cover living expenses, it's like I'm supporting him. When I fell silent, perhaps realizing something was wrong, Mike soothingly stroked my head. Are you jealous of the car? That's cute. Don't worry, I'm all about Emily. I love you so much. If we're talking about people, Emily, you're the best in the world. I knew he was trying to charm me, but his ridiculous words made me laugh, and I couldn't say anything more. This is quite a situation for a newlywed. During a break at work, listening to my venting with a wry smile was Ms. Young, the same age as Mike. She's a superwoman, appreciated for her work, and promoted exceptionally fast. Her empathetic approach to consulting earns her everyone's trust. I thought he was a man of strong preferences, but I never imagined he'd be so self-centered. My ex-husband was the same. Always put himself first, never listened to what I had to say. Exactly. We haven't even unpacked from moving yet, and he's always sneaking off to the garage. Well, I ended up divorcing because he never changed. But Emily, you're still in the honeymoon phase. Things might change, you know. Ms. Young then pulled out a small bag of chocolates and placed it in front of me. Eat something sweet and refresh yourself. You don't have to force yourself to accept your husband. But why not try to understand him better? Of course, joining the divorcee club is always an option too. As I ate the chocolate, I laughed with Ms. Young. Indeed, I never showed much interest in cars. Never really tried to learn about them. Maybe that attitude came across when Mike talked about cars. Since I might get off work early today, maybe I'll make Mike's favorite Chinese food and wait for him. After finishing shopping at the supermarket, I quickly headed home. Alright, what should I start with? I packed the groceries into the fridge and flipped through a recipe book. Lately, I've been so busy with daily chores that I haven't had the chance to cook anything elaborate. As I was pondering what to cook, I faintly heard a woman's voice from somewhere. I strained my ears towards the open window, and although the voice was intermittent, I could definitely hear something. The houses around here are spaced out, not close together. It's not someone from the neighborhood. The intermittently audible voice made me uneasy, so I grabbed an umbrella and my phone, which were near the entrance, just in case, and quietly headed towards the source of the voice. The voice seemed to be coming from the garage. The garage shutter, which is usually closed, was oddly open. Mike doesn't use that super luxury car for commuting. He's afraid of getting it scratched, and apparently, it's also hard to drive. Therefore, the shutter is always closed. Mike should be opening it every day after returning home with the remote control. He even had me install a security camera in the garage for safety. It's strange that such a heavily secured garage is open. What if it's a female thief? If she's after the car, I need to protect it. It's Mike's precious car, after all. I gripped the umbrella tightly in my hand. It seems the female thief is already in the car. Is she struggling to start the engine? The car was shaking enough for me to notice from a distance. I prepared my phone to call 911 at any moment and slowly approached the car, crouching low. I hid right beside the window. That's when I finally realized I was making a huge mistake. No way. My hand trembled, making the umbrella quiver. I could feel my heart pounding. As I got close, I clearly understood. There wasn't just a woman in the car, but a man too. And they were, astonishingly, in the midst of an affair. Who could it be? It's obvious. No one would use someone else's car in their garage for such acts. Mike was having an affair. Oh my. I almost screamed from the shop, but bit my lower lip to endure it. I can't let them know I'm here. I need to get evidence. I have my phone. I could record a video, but how? My voice is muffled, and it's hard to film inside the car without being noticed. My emotions are a mess, and tears are overflowing without understanding why. I know I need to do something, but I can't move. Suddenly, the car's shaking and the voices stopped. Phew! It's hot! Along with the voice, the rear seat door on the opposite side of where I am opened. And sure enough, it was Mike who came out. I couldn't see him, but I recognized his voice. A woman also seemed to come out a bit later. Wait, I'm not even dressed yet. And Mike, you're only wearing a shirt and no pants. Crazy! The woman giggled. I don't recognize her voice. Well, there's no need to wear them yet. Look, the car's cramped. So how about outside next time, right? Mike's cheerful voice made my skin crawl. No way, someone might see us. Close the shutter. Yeah, it's fine. The car will hide us. The remote is too far. Come here, Sarah, you're the best. I've heard these lines before, and it pained my heart. He said them to anyone. I foolishly believed. Soon the woman, Sarah, didn't seem to mind either, and they started making disturbing noises again. Don't they have any shame, potentially being seen by someone outside? I just put these on. It's okay, it's okay. Whether he undressed her or she did it herself. Clothes flew overhead and landed right in front of me, hiding in the shadow of the car. I can't take it anymore. I can't stay here. But if I leave now, what about the evidence? In a semi-panic, I noticed something in the upper corner of the garage. That's right. With that, I should be able to get evidence without being here. With a plan in mind, my mind calmed, and I became cool-headed. They were too absorbed in their actions to notice me. I easily made it to the garage exit. That's it. I quickly grabbed the clothes on the ground and the remote on the wall and left the garage. Then, everything happened fast. I packed only the essential belongings into the trunk. I'm not coming back to this house. 10 minutes later, I was at my office. To save the evidence. It's possible with a phone, but a computer feels more secure. There's a computer at home, but staying there risked running into them. I have my personal computer at the office. I'll just take that and maybe go to some cafe. I hurried to my desk, grabbed my laptop, and was about to head to the door when someone grabbed my shoulder. Hey, Emily, are you okay? I turned around to see Ms. Young standing there, her eyebrows furrowed and a puzzled look on her face. I meant to say good evening, but I couldn't speak properly. Your face is pale. Are you okay? What happened? Ms. Young just stared at me silently. Looking into her eyes, I started crying again. As the tears flowed, I felt my strength draining. Ms. Young. Mike, he's cheating on me. I clung to Ms. Young like a child. Cheating? What? Ms. Young's sharp eyes widened, and she jerked her chin forward in anger. Then she covered my head with her jacket. Ms. Young, there are still a few people around. Use this to cover yourself. Okay. Feeling like a suspect on the news, we hurried out of the office. Let's go to my place for now. But I feel bad. She must be tired after work. The thought of suddenly imposing on my boss's home made me hesitate, but that feeling vanished instantly. Just a while ago, I had witnessed such a shocking scene. To me, Ms. Young was a pillar of strength. Thank you. Ms. Young's apartment was just a few minutes' walk from the office. True to her capable nature, her place had a calm and neat atmosphere. So, what do you need the laptop for? Is the cheating confirmed, not just a suspicion? Ms. Young asked as she handed me a steaming cup of coffee. Well, actually, I hesitated a bit, then told her everything. Unbelievable. How could he? Ms. Young trembled with anger after hearing it all. So, what are you going to do now? I can't deal with him anymore, not just as a husband, but even as a person. I'm thinking of moving towards a divorce. It's pretty severe. You should get as much alimony as you can. Do you think you can get evidence? I can refer a liar if you need one. Thank you. About that, I need this for. I placed my personal laptop I had brought from the office on the table. After a few minutes of operating it, I turned the screen towards Ms. Young. This, your husband and the other woman? Yes, this is a recording. I never thought that the surveillance camera for the luxury car would come in handy here. It's remotely operable, and the data is stored on the cloud, meaning everything from that time is recorded, from them entering the car to their monkey-like antics. It's all here. This is enough evidence for adultery. I'm relieved. By the way, can you view this in real time? What are those monkeys doing now? Surely they must be gone by now. Actually, I took out the remote control from my bag and showed it to her. What's that? It's for the electric shutter. I closed it when I left. In a rush of blood to the head, I had closed the shutter after getting ready to leave the house. And as an afterthought, I threw the clothes I picked up in front of the shutter. It was a rash action done impulsively. But one thing is for sure. Right now, those two are locked in the garage in a disgraceful state. You go, girl. That's hilarious. Ms. Young burst out laughing, slapping her thigh. I don't think they've noticed me yet, so they must be panicking by now. Checking the camera, it seemed they noticed just before the shutter completely closed. But they couldn't escape in time. The camera showed the two arguing miserably. Seeing this, Ms. Young laughed even louder. Her laughter made me smile too. That's when it happened. My phone started ringing. The caller was Mike. I didn't want to answer, but I reflexively pressed the button. There's no avoiding it now. I reluctantly answered the call. Hello? Oh, Emily, you still at work? He was trying to sound calm, but I could hear a slight tremble in Mike's voice. Yeah, I'm with Ms. Young. What's up? Oh, yeah, the garage shutter seems to have malfunctioned. I'm locked in, and I can't find the remote. It wasn't a malfunction. I had impulsively closed it. The remote is right here with me. Well, that's unfortunate. Maybe you should contact a service company. They should be able to open it quickly. No, that's okay. Yeah, it would be a waste of money, you know. Yeah, I'll think of something else. Mike quickly denied it. Of course, he would. If the service company comes, they can easily open the shutter, but the two of them inside are probably not in a presentable state. So, coming back home right now is... Sorry, I can't. Hey, your husband is in trouble here. Just dismissing it like that. Are you even a wife? I don't want to be lectured by someone who's trapped with his mistress. There's no helping it. Oh? Why don't I make the call? No, that's not what I'm... damn it. Mike sounded frustrated. He must be struggling to explain the situation without giving himself away. What's wrong? You're acting strange. I'm going to hang up now. Wait, Emily, I pretended not to hear and hung up the phone, but it immediately rang again. As I was wondering what to do, Ms. Young smiled at me. Your husband must be trying to get you to open it for him. She's probably right. If they ask a service company, their embarrassing state would be exposed. But if I call an M there, they could hide in the car, avoiding any shameful exposure. Their affair would also be somewhat concealed. The phone calls are persistent. Here's an idea. Emily, why don't you go on an overseas business trip? What? Ms. Young began to explain smoothly. It seemed sudden, but she had apparently been considering assigning this work to me for a while. The trip itself was planned for about a week, but it might be extended. She was going to go herself, thinking it would be too much to ask of a newlywed. But if you're getting a divorce, it's perfect. Just tell your husband you have to go on a business trip. But with my current state of mind, working, that's exactly why you should do it. You'll feel surprisingly refreshed if you focus on work instead of stewing in your thoughts. Plus, your husband will keep calling until you come home. You don't want to see him right now, do you? Indeed, just the thought of being in the same space as Mike is repulsive to me now. And I'm getting fed up with the constant ringing of my phone. Really? I feel like I'm mixing personal issues with work. Don't worry about it. It's the other way around. I'm just taking advantage of your personal situation. Despite my hesitation, Ms. Young insisted, and I ended up going on an overseas business trip. I sent Mike a message through our messaging app. I have an urgent business trip and won't be back for a week. It's overseas, so I'll be limiting my communication. And then I left for the trip. Although I went abroad with some apprehension, Ms. Young's briefing and materials were perfect, and the work went smoothly as I had been involved with the project previously. It seemed I was well received at the destination, and I had a fulfilling private life there, making the week fly by. I stayed in daily contact with Ms. Young, exchanging various information. I remembered that before getting married, one of my goals was to live and work abroad, although it was only for a limited time. It felt like my dream had come true. Once everything with Mike was settled, I decided to return. When I got back to the US, I immediately took action. I had no intention of returning to that house. Before the trip, Ms. Young and I had identified a property, and I moved there straight from the airport. I ignored all of Mike's messages during this time. I decided it was better to wait until I was fully prepared. About a week after moving into my new apartment, I received a call from an unknown number. Maybe it was a work contact I forgot to save. I casually answered the phone. "Hello? Emily? Finally, you answered." The relieved voice on the other end was still barely my husband, Mike. "Mike, why? Why aren't you answering? Going silent for so long, are you cheating? Was the business trip a lie? What? What is he talking about? That's his story. How much I suffered because of those two." I was about to retort, but I managed to hold back. "Anyway, come back home. There's something important to talk about." Silent, I listened as Mike abruptly hung up. The time for the final showdown had come. I took a deep breath and visited that detestable house for the first time in weeks. "You finally came back." As I stood at the entrance, the door opened, and there was Mike, arms crossed, standing upright. "I didn't come back to stay, I came to talk. You said there was something important. I have something I want to say to. Come in then." Mike gestured with his chin for me to come in, then strode ahead into the house. Following behind, I walked into the living room, and immediately, a person caught my eye. Oh, no mistake about it. There on the sofa sat Sarah. She waved her hand at me when our eyes met. Glaring at Mike, I turned my gaze away from him as he spoke. "She's a colleague from work. She's been helping out a lot while you were gone. Just a colleague, coming over to the house. Enough. You don't have the right to question me." Mike sighed heavily and slammed a paper onto the table. I stared at it intently. "Do you know what this is?" "It's a divorce paper. A selfish wife who doesn't care about her family doesn't suit me," Mike yelled, trying to look decisive. I chuckled slightly and reached into my bag. Coincidentally, we were thinking the same thing. "What?" Mimicking Mike from earlier, I slapped my own already filled out divorce papers onto the table. Why? Because I wanted a divorce. You too, right?" "That's true, but..." He must have thought I would cry and cling to him, but instead, he looked shocked. "Shall we proceed?" "About the alimony." Mike looked up, startled. "Yeah, that's important. We need to discuss that thoroughly. I don't know the going rates, so I asked a lawyer. He said about $40,000 would be fair." "What? That much? Is that okay?" Mike's face lit up. Sarah also looked delighted. $40,000 each to Sarah and you. So that's $80,000 in total. "We did it, Sarah. You're so generous." I watched them hold hands and jump around. Then I said quietly, puzzled, "Why are you so happy? Are you glad to be paying alimony?" They stopped and stared at me with wide eyes. "You misunderstood, right? You're saying we're the ones paying alimony." "Of course. Why would I pay it?" I smiled, and Mike's face turned red as he shouted, "It's your fault, because you selfishly left the house. I started thinking about divorce. And yet, why should we? Why? Don't you have any idea?" I glared at them, and both Mike and Sarah visibly panicked. "Well, maybe I was too busy to pay attention to you." Such a shameless response. "Sure, you must have been busy, meeting each other every week for secret dates." "Secret dates? We never did that." His voice cracked with too much agitation. "Always meeting on weekdays, even in our own house. How thrifty of you. Even high schoolers spend a bit more. You were even buying lunch from convenience stores. Why not spend a little more on her? Mike turned beach red, his mouth opening and closing without words. He wanted to retort, but he couldn't. I was saving for our future with Sarah. I like being frugal. That was his best response. I've wanted to say this for a while, but being frugal and being cheap are different. Your frugality isn't saving. It's just being a nuisance to others. What did you say? Mike started to raise his arm in anger, but stopped when he saw the person who appeared behind me. Who's that? It was Ms. Young, who had come to back me up. There's a reason I asked Ms. Young to come. You know her, right, Sarah? Sarah, pale-faced, looked at Ms. Young. Sarah quickly prostrated herself before Ms. Young. Please don't tell my mom. Your mom? Mike looked at Sarah, dumbfounded. I answered for the silent Sarah. Sarah is still a college student. She lives near Ms. Young. Yes, initially, Ms. Young hadn't recognized her from the camera footage, but Ms. Young and Sarah actually knew each other. Sarah's family was well known in the neighborhood for being very strict. Becoming involved with a married man was absolutely unthinkable. They even forbade her from dating. A college student? No way. She told me she was a working adult. What? Didn't you just say she was your colleague? What's going on? Mike looked around nervously, not answering. I'm sorry. Even if I don't say anything, a lawyer will contact you. You can't afford to pay alimony yet, right? So someone else will have to. Sarah remained bowed, trembling. Stop it, please. I was grounded for just dating a classmate. If they find out I was with a married man, I might never be allowed out again. Why did she choose Mike, knowing the risk? Watching them, I felt disgusted. Then Mike weakly knelt beside Sarah. Wait, Sarah's unemployed. Stop saying it like that. I'm a college student. That's unemployed. Damn it. How could you do this to me? I need a working wife. The loans. What? What are you saying, you deadbeat? Don't rely on someone else's income. Mike, on the verge of a breakdown, and Sarah, infuriated. Ms. Young muttered, birds of a feather, a perfect match. It was pointless to watch them argue. Ms. Young and I exchanged looks and were about to leave the room. Then Mike, frantic, grabbed my arm. Wait for me. I was deceived. I haven't been cheating. Emily, you're the best. Believe me. Is that all he can say, this man? I stared intently at Mike. His face was a mess with tears, his eyes bloodshot, and all he could utter were words of self-preservation, and most of those words were lies. I'm so glad I didn't end up spending my life with him. Here, take this back. Why do you have that remote? Weren't the service guys surprised? You should learn from this and stop using the garage for, I saw everything. And don't use such an expensive car as a hotel substitute. Cars are meant to be driven. If you're going to get in, sit in the driver's seat. Don't get it mixed up. Finally understanding, Mike's face drained of color, and he slumped down to the floor. As Ms. Young laughed and patted me on the back, I left the house. Afterward, the divorce went through without a hitch. Sarah's parents paid the alimony, which was a relief. Sarah herself was called back home and can hardly go out now. After this incident, she's been stripped of her makeup, not allowed to dye her hair, and has been forced to study every day. Ms. Young told me she might soon be married off to someone her parents choose. It might be old-fashioned, but maybe that's for the best for Sarah. As for Mike, after the divorce, news of his affair with a college student spread rapidly at work. He himself claimed to be a devoted husband at work, so the backlash from this incident was tremendous. Moreover, the person he was involved with was a college student. His credibility at work and with clients plummeted. Now, he's ostracized both inside and outside of work. Mike continues to work, mainly to pay off the loan for his luxury car. However, considering his situation, it's widely rumored that it's only a matter of time before he's fired, as he's seen as a liability to the company. I hear about their endings, but honestly, I'm not much interested. I have my own life to focus on. A year after the divorce, I quit my job. Now, I'm working abroad, fulfilling my dream, in a dreamlike place, for a dreamlike person. Hey, Emily, why are you grinning? Oh, nothing. Just thinking about how to surpass Ms. Young. How can I do that? Recently, Ms. Young started her own business and asked me to join her abroad. I hadn't expected it to be overseas, but I immediately said yes. My dream has come true, but now I have a new one. To become like Ms. Young, to surpass her one day, and to repay all the kindness she's shown me. Ms. Young has given me so much, both in my personal and professional life. I don't know when I'll achieve this dream, but I'm determined to make it happen. Good luck with that in your lifetime, Ms. Young says with a knowing smile, and I vow to myself to make it true.